Welcome to the animated past, where the ancient world comes back to life, one story at a time. Be sure to like and subscribe to support the channel and never miss a video. The year is 69 BC, Alexandria, Egypt, the most dazzling city in the ancient world, a place of towering marble columns, bustling harbors, and the greatest library ever built. A city where Greek scholars debated the size of the earth, and where Egyptian priests still spoke to gods older than memory. Into this world, a daughter was born to the king of Egypt. Her name was Cleopatra, and the world would never forget her. Cleopatra VII was not the woman history made her into. She was not simply a seductress. She was not a pawn. She was a strategist, a linguist, a politician who could outmaneuver men twice her age. And she would need every one of those gifts, because the world she was born into was already on fire. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was known by two names. Officially, the new Dionysus. Unofficially, and far more honestly, the flute player. He was a weak king, desperate to hold on to his crown, willing to beg Rome for help, and willing to tax his own people into poverty to pay for it. Cleopatra watched her father grovel. She watched him flee Egypt in 58 BC, when riots broke out, and her older sister, Berenice IV, seized the throne. She watched him come crawling back 3 years later, with Roman soldiers at his side. And she watched him execute Berenice without hesitation. She was 14 years old. The lesson was brutal and clear. Power is everything. Sentimentality is death. When Ptolemy XII finally died in 51 BC, Cleopatra was 18. By Egyptian law, she could not rule alone. She needed a male co-regent. So she was paired with her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII. She had no intention of sharing anything. For 2 years, she maneuvered, consolidated, and asserted herself as the true ruler of Egypt. But her brother's advisors, particularly a eunuch named Pothinus, were not about to let a young woman control the kingdom. They turned Ptolemy XIII against her. In 49 BC, Cleopatra was forced out of Egypt, exiled. Her own brother had thrown her out of her own country. She crossed into Syria and did what her father never had the spine to do. She raised an army. While Cleopatra camped on Egypt's border, waiting for her moment, the Roman world was tearing itself apart. Julius Caesar and Pompey, once allies, now enemies, were locked in a civil war that was reshaping the entire Mediterranean. And in 48 BC, that war came to Egypt's doorstep. Pompey, defeated and fleeing, landed on the Egyptian shore seeking refuge. He was murdered the moment he stepped off the boat, killed on the orders of Ptolemy XIII's advisors, who thought it would please Caesar. It did not please Caesar. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria and was presented with Pompey's severed head, he wept. Or, at least, he made a great show of weeping. Pompey had been his son-in-law. Whatever Caesar felt, the message was clear. The Egyptians had miscalculated. Caesar occupied the royal palace. He was 60 miles from Cleopatra's army, and he held the capital. She had one chance. The story goes, and it is a story almost too good not to be true, that Cleopatra had herself rolled inside a linen sack, or perhaps a carpet, and smuggled past her brother's guards directly into Caesar's chambers. She unrolled at his feet. Caesar was 52. She was 21. By morning, they were allies. What Caesar saw in that room was not just a beautiful woman. He saw a queen, with a legitimate claim to the most powerful and wealthy kingdom in the known world. A kingdom Rome desperately needed for its grain. And what Cleopatra saw was the most powerful man alive. They were perfectly matched. Ptolemy XIII was furious. His general, Achilles, marched 20,000 troops on Alexandria. Caesar and Cleopatra were trapped inside the palace together, while the city burned outside. At one point, Caesar set fire to the Egyptian fleet in the harbor. The flames spread to the docks, possibly reaching the great library of Alexandria itself. For months, they held out. Then Ptolemy XIII, attempting to flee, drowned in the Nile. His army collapsed. Cleopatra had won. She was 21 years old, and she had just defeated her own brother with the help of the most powerful man in Rome. She ruled now with a younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, age 11, but only because Egyptian tradition demanded it. He was a figurehead. She was the pharaoh. In 47 BC, she gave birth to a son. She named him Ptolemy Caesar. The people called him Caesarion, Little Caesar. Caesar invited her to Rome. She came, and Rome was scandalized. Caesar already had a wife, Calpurnia. He had laws to uphold and a reputation to maintain. None of that stopped him from installing Cleopatra in his private villa across the Tiber, treating her as royalty, and erecting a golden statue of her in the Temple of Venus. The Roman aristocracy sneered. The historian Cicero despised her openly. She was foreign. She was a queen in a city that had abolished kings centuries ago. She represented everything Rome claimed to stand against. But for nearly 2 years, she lived there, watching, learning, the most powerful city in the world from the inside. Then came the 15th of March, 44 BC, the Ides of March. Julius Caesar was stabbed 23 times on the floor of the Senate. He died at the foot of a statue of Pompey, the man whose murder had started this whole chain of events. Cleopatra had no protector. She returned to Egypt. Ptolemy XIV died shortly after her return. History calls it illness. Most historians believe she poisoned him. She had her son Caesarion crowned co-ruler in his place. She was 25 years old, a widow without a husband, a queen without an ally. And Rome was about to tear itself apart again. The Roman world split 3 ways after Caesar's assassination. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, Lepidus, and Mark Antony, who controlled the eastern half of the empire. In 41 BC, Antony summoned Cleopatra to the city of Tarsus in modern-day Turkey. He had questions about her loyalties during the wars. Had she helped his enemies? She didn't rush. She made him wait. When she finally arrived, she did so on a golden barge with purple sails and silver oars. Her crew were dressed as sea nymphs. She herself sat beneath a canopy dressed as Aphrodite, fanned by boys dressed as Cupids. The scent of perfume drifted to shore before the ship even docked. The docks were deserted. The entire city had gone to the waterfront to watch. Antony sat alone at his banquet, waiting for a guest who had already made him irrelevant. He never recovered from it. Their alliance, political, strategic, and deeply personal, would last a decade. She gave him access to Egypt's vast wealth and resources. He gave her military protection and Roman legitimacy. Together, they imagined building something new in the East, a rival power to Octavian's Rome. Antony left for Rome in 40 BC. He married Octavian's sister, Octavia, a political arrangement to keep the peace. Cleopatra gave birth to twins in his absence, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. But in 37 BC, Antony returned to her. He never really left again. He married her in an Egyptian ceremony, technically illegal under Roman law. He began granting her Roman territories, and in 34 BC, in a ceremony Romans called the Donations of Alexandria, he stood before the public and divided Rome's Eastern Empire between Cleopatra and her children. Caesarion was declared the true son and heir of Julius Caesar, a direct attack on Octavian's legitimacy. Octavian had his weapon. He read Antony's will to the Roman Senate, a document he had stolen from the sacred keeping of the Vestal Virgins. The will allegedly said that Antony wished to be buried in Alexandria, beside Cleopatra, not in Rome. Rome erupted. Octavian declared war, not on Antony, on Cleopatra. It was a foreign queen, not a civil war. That distinction mattered enormously to Roman pride. On the 2nd of September, 31 BC, the two sides met at the Battle of Actium, off the coast of Greece. It was a naval battle, and it was a disaster. Cleopatra's fleet broke through the Roman line and fled south toward Egypt. Antony, inexplicably, fatally, abandoned his own ships and followed her. His army, left without a commander, surrendered. Octavian had won. For nearly a year, Antony and Cleopatra tried to rebuild. They sent messages to Octavian. They explored alliances elsewhere. Nothing worked. One by one, their allies defected. In August of 30 BC, Octavian marched his army into Egypt. Antony received word, false word, that Cleopatra was already dead. He fell on his own sword. He did not die immediately. He was carried to the mausoleum where Cleopatra had barricaded herself, and she pulled him up through a window with ropes, with her own hands. He died in her arms. Octavian captured her. He wanted her alive. He planned to parade her through the streets of Rome in chains, the ultimate symbol of his triumph. The foreign queen conquered. Cleopatra had other plans. On the 12th of August, 30 BC, she dressed in her royal robes. She sent a letter to Octavian, asking only that she be buried beside Antony. Then she died. The method is still debated. The ancient sources say a cobra, smuggled in with a basket of figs. Some historians believe it was a hidden vial of poison. Whatever the means, it was her choice, and she made it with the full dignity of a pharaoh. She was 39 years old. Octavian executed Caesarion. He ordered the boy killed within days. Too many Caesars, he said. Egypt became a Roman province. The Ptolemaic dynasty, 300 years of Greek kings ruling the land of the pharaohs, ended not with a battle, but with a woman choosing death over chains. Cleopatra is often reduced to her relationships, to Caesar, to Antony, to her death. But that misses the point entirely. She ruled Egypt for 21 years. She stabilized a kingdom that was crumbling when she inherited it. She spoke 9 languages in an age when kings expected the world to speak theirs. She aligned herself with the 2 most powerful men in Rome, not out of weakness, but because those were the only moves available on the board she was dealt. She nearly did it. She nearly built something that could have changed the course of Western civilization. A powerful Eastern empire centered on Alexandria that might have stopped Rome's dominance cold. She came that close, and when the end came, she chose it on her own terms. The last pharaoh of Egypt, the last ruler of a dynasty stretching back 3,000 years. The ancient world ended with her.
Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a video.